Good morning. Happy Saturday. Today is day 11 of our 14 days of resume and interview tips. And my name is Shatanice Reese, your 20-year HR professional, here to give you some tips on interviews and resumes. And if you have not caught the previous day's interviews, feel free to check them out on my YouTube channel, Shatanice Reese, or here on my Facebook, my Super Extraordinary Mom LLC Facebook page. And so Super Extraordinary Mom LLC is an HR consulting firm, and we specialize in leadership development workshops. So we come in, we assess the needs of your team, and we offer customized training. I also offer resume and interview tips as a workshop as well. So those ideas or tips or workshops, goodness, if any of those are of interest to you, let me know, and we can have a conversation and see what works best for you. Let's dive into today's topic, which is the types of interviews. We have the panel, the lunch, the videos. We're going to spend just a few minutes on each of those because we want these videos to be very brief and to the point. So of course, when you're invited in for an interview, let's applause, yay! When you're invited in for an interview, that basically tells you that on paper, the company feels that you can do the job, that you have the skills that are needed. So being invited in is essentially the company's way to see if you're a good fit. They're trying to assess culture fit at that point. And so this is a perfect time for you to come in, be yourself. You also are interviewing the company. You want to make certain that this is a good fit for you. How is the culture? If diversity is important to you, what's the diversity that you see when you're going through the interview process? All of those things should be playing through your mind as you are interviewing. The most typical interview is the panel interview, or let me take that back, is the one-on-one interview, and then secondly is the panel interview. The one-on-one usually is the first step between you and the recruiter, and then when you're invited in, you will interview possibly with a panel, which would be a representation of various individuals who could interact with this particular role. And so the one-on-one interviews, certainly you can be very comfortable in those and you're talking one-on-one. The panel interviews can be unnerving, especially if you're not accustomed to looking and talking to various people at one time. I would encourage you to sit with someone and practice that. So when you're answering a question, you're not just simply looking at the person who posed the question, but you're actually looking at everyone who is there participating in the panel interview. So that's something to keep in mind, that when you are in a panel interview, that you look, try to get eye contact with everyone who's seated around the table. But again, relax, take a deep breath. As I stated, they believe you can do the job. That's why they've invited you in for an interview. Now they're just trying to see if there's a good fit culturally. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about video interviews because they're not going away. And I've conducted a number of video interviews throughout my career, and you'd be surprised at how many people are ill prepared for video interviews. Number one, they're not comfortable with the application that's being used. GoToMeeting, Zoom meeting, those are similar applications that companies may use for video interviews. Sometimes companies may actually use Google Hangouts or FaceTime or Skype. Whatever method that is being offered, I encourage you to test it out several days before, if possible, and call someone and say, hey, I'm just preparing for my video interview. I just want to make certain that you can hear me and I look comfortable and I don't look stiff, and that you're ready to go when they call you for the interview. Also, make certain that whatever you're using, I encourage you to try to use a laptop, but if you are using your device, have it stationary. Too many times people I've interviewed have their device in their hand, and I can unfortunately see up their nose, or I can see the ceiling, or it's not a pretty sight. So have it stationary, and you see that my hands are moving. That's because we're having a conversation. But if you know that your hands may be a distraction, you keep them in your lap. Also, if you are using your device or your laptop, make certain that you turn off any type of notifications, because that's the last thing that you want for a phone call to come in while you're interviewing, or to have text messages or any of those notifications to come through to distract you. Put your phone or your laptop on do not disturb, and you can do that in the settings. Also, make certain that behind you reflects what you want to have reflected. I interviewed someone recently, and they had a family tree on their wall. It was really cool, a little distracting. And so you want to make certain that you're in a place that is quiet, that you will not be disturbed, and that whatever is behind you is a good reflection of who you are. So I've seen a number of things on walls behind candidates. And I always ask, as the interviewer, are you sure this is a good time, number one? And are you in a good space? I also try to let them know in advance that you will be participating in a formal interview. And so the same holds true if you're showing up face to face. Make certain your attire is appropriate. You may not be surprised to know, but I actually had folks that answered their video interview either in their robe or they were still in the bed. And I thought, what's going on? So please, please, please make sure that you are prepared. And if you're not, don't answer the call. Do not answer the call. So those are just a few things about video interview. So as a recap on the video interviews, make certain that you are familiar with the app. Make certain that behind you is representative of what you want to display and depict. Make certain that your device is stationary and it's not moving around and causing the interviewer to be seasick. We don't want that. And also make certain that you're in a quiet place that cannot be disturbed. So those are the primary tips for video interviewing. And there are different types of video interviews. There are some that are pre-recorded and you are just simply responding to those questions. And you don't necessarily have an extended period of time to practice. Sometimes the application will give you a couple of seconds to kind of practice and think through your response. Other times you just need to go ahead and respond. That's one type. And then the other type is where live, you're actually talking to someone and they're interviewing you. That's usually used as the first step to the interview process. So keep that in mind. Again, practice, 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 practice. You want to make certain that you're comfortable and that there's nothing that will contribute to you not being selected. So those are the types of interviews. Good morning. That you could face. You could have the one-on-one, which is typical. You could also have the panel, and you can have the video. Oh, I almost forgot. And the lunch interview. Even if you are taken out to lunch, you are still on display. It's still interview mode. So be careful. I don't want you to get so comfortable that you are not responding appropriately, or that you say something that just is out of character or may cause a raised eyebrow. And I also caution my hiring managers when they are taking candidates out to lunch, because it is much more of a relaxed environment. And so sometimes questions that shouldn't be asked may come up over lunch because you're chit-chatting. And so it may be common to ask about your family or where you're from and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to tell you to run and sue anyone who immediately asks you those questions. I will ask you to use discernment, because again, it is a lunch meeting and sometimes it's difficult to find things to talk about. However, they should still be focused on you in your role and the role in the company. Those are the types of questions and the conversation that should be occurring when you're on lunch. Also be mindful of what you order, because you don't want anything to get stuck in your teeth or to the potential of spillage. So just keep that in mind. So that essentially is it in terms of the interviews. Again, trying to make this nice and brief. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to send me a private message and we can talk about that. If you have a resume that needs to be reviewed, again, send me a private message. If you have a group of folks who need to hear this information, send me a message and we'll have a conversation. Happy Saturday, everybody. Tomorrow, which is day 12, we will talk about what to wear when you are invited in for that interview. You don't want to miss it. See you soon. Bye.